Hi, I'm Mark Cleghorn, and today I'm going to be joined on another talk photography by the amazing Edie Roque, art and boudoir photographer. Welcome from LA, I believe, yes?
Yes, Mark. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
well,
me.
I hope the weather's better there than it is here. It's about -3 outside, and it's raining awful. I'm
Uh,
still in my shorts, but I spend most of my time in my office, so I'm okay with it. Eddie, before we start, thank you very, very much for kind of agreeing to do a talk photography. And I know today the session's about art and boudoir, which you're a specialist in. Before we start to look at the 8 images, bring me up to speed. You know, what kind of is your background in photography? Have you been around a long time, or you're just getting going? How's the world of photography for you?
well, I got my first camera. It was a Canon F1.
Hmm.
And
Film
again,
job.
giving up my age, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was about 14, 15 years old. Um, my mother is an art teacher. So I was raised with paintings, sculptures, nudity. It was never something to be ashamed of. It was never something connected to sexuality. It was more about body and
Yeah, yeah.
expression. And I've been doing photography, and music was my first introduction to the arts when I was 4 or 5 years old. My father playing piano, I wanted to learn and play piano. So most of my life, somebody told me you can only do one thing, and that was very harmful to me because some people think I'm a musician taking pictures. Some people think I'm a photographer making music because I can't live without one of those two things, like I need both to express who I am. But I've been doing photography for the majority of my life.
Cool. And when did you start to specialize into boudoir photography?
Uh, it's hard to tell because of the music. I was doing portraits and album covers. I start to work with cinematography, so music videos and then all of that, before internet.
Yeah.
And I always have that kind of eye for shaping the body and sculpting with light. I'm a huge fan. I was raised playing with strobes, so I was never kind of a natural light guy per se. Um, and I did some modeling at young age, met a lot of models because of the photography. They were asking, "Oh, can you do some pictures, some portraits?" And as you develop that eye and that style, you get more comfortable. You push a little further, like, "Oh, can we try this? Can we try that?"
Yeah.
But boudoir for me and fashion, because that's the majority of my life as photography was commercial and fashion. I never really cared about boudoir because I never had a photographer. There was somebody to look up to. To me, it was just somebody with a camera, naked girl next to a window, take the shot. You can go wrong. It was a way to overlook things, right? Um, I love Peter Lindbergh, Herb Ritts, Richard Avedon, and it took me a while to understand those guys in fashion. They were the OG boudoir because it's more about how you make the woman feel than the picture itself. But I had a little bit of preconcept in calling myself a boudoir photographer. So it took me years to understand the power and how important for women that is,
Yeah, yeah.
rather than just the pictures. And I like to say 80% of my clients, the session, it's a therapy for them. They're trying to overcome traumas, the way they see themselves, the preconcept from past relationships, family members. So there's just so much they're trying to heal and overcome. And the pictures is just it's just a way to get there. And
Okay.
that's why so many people get away without knowing the technical aspect of photography and do the boudoir.
Photography is a lot easier today, isn't it? Especially because you can see on the back of the camera.
Yeah.
So, you know, the good news is that they can see their mistakes. The bad news is you need to make mistakes to get better. And if there's a perfect photograph, or if they think an image on the back of the camera looks good, they're not really exploring how to go wrong. And I think you mentioned, you know, fashion and everything else. Those are commercial techniques, isn't it? That you've got to nail the image, but on the other hand, you're also got to be playing with kind of ideas and so on with it and things really. So I mentioned at the beginning that you're from LA. So have you got a studio there, or do you work in
Yes.
clients' homes, or what do you do?
Yes. I was born in Brazil, São Paulo.
Okay.
Moved to LA 10 years now. I have a studio. I was working with some companies, so you know you always have to drive around to do the work. So since 2 years ago, uh, I built my own space initially for kind of fashion slash boudoir. So it's a space that can double because I'm
Yeah.
still working with my commercial work.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate to have my own space and you know start to build a reputation as a business, not just as a photographer. Just navigating, right?
So the 8 images that we're going to look at today, are they from a particular shoot, or are they a combination of different shoots, or what is it?
They're from a single session, and it's very interesting. You mentioned this model when I first approached you, because I seen some people, and usually they have a collection of images over the years and their favorites, and I'm like, okay, one model, 8 pictures. So we get this session. She kind of is. It's a great actress, a great model,
Yeah.
and we pretty much did this session thinking about this presentation right now.
Oh, okay then, cool. Let's go back to what you were saying about, you know, you're not worried about all the nudity element and things, because that can be a big hang up
Yeah.
for a lot of photographers, isn't it? As well as society alone. I like you kind of grew up in the world of art, but not through my mum and dad. My dad was a butcher, and my mum was a stay-at-home mom. But I came through the world of art in school. In fact, I went to art life drawing classes at 17 because I was planning to go to art college, and I had to have special permission to do it because of my age, but my photography was too dominant. And this isn't about me, but what I'm saying is because of that exposure to life drawing, for me, the nude became just another thing. So boudoir photography is just clothed nude. So for me, it's never been kind of a hang up and everything else. I'm sure you've got mates like my mates on, always offer to kind of assist me and everything else. They would actually die of embarrassment if they ever had the opportunity and things really. But do you think, because there's a lot of female boudoir photographers now, isn't there? It seems
Yes.
to be, which is really great. In the past 10 years, the past decade specifically, we've had a real influx of female photography. And I think that's fantastic, because I think that's why the world of boudoir has exploded a little bit more than it was, because it's always good to have that yin and yang, isn't it? You know, the male photographer, the female photographer, and kind of both talking about the same thing. How do you feel? What's your kind of impression to do with how far to go with boudoir? Because there's different types of boudoir, isn't there?
Yes.
There's kind of going more down to the glamour route, and in UK we have different terminology than in America. Explain to me what boudoir is to you, can you?
Um, like I told you, I was shooting models and doing fashion work, and they would ask me because you know of my dad jokes, even at a young age. Like I present myself as somebody they can trust, somebody that those pictures are not going anywhere, and it's a work out of respect, and really the goal is to get them to express themselves and to be in the moment. So I start doing that without knowing that it was called boudoir, right?
Yeah.
From one model, I got referred to my first client. Like, I have a friend who would love to do these pictures, but she's not a model. And that was the big challenge for me, because then there's no flow or posing, or it's just somebody that depends on you for everything. What do I do with my hands? Where am I looking? How? And all of those traumas, right? The way that they see themselves, they really, they're exaggerated, right? Oh, I hate my legs, I hate my nose, I don't like my hip. Oh, don't take a picture to this side.
Yeah.
So the way I see is, it takes me a few minutes to get to know them, to get to know why they want to do that, and how they want to present themselves, or how they want to see themselves. And many times I want to do this because I'm getting married, or because I got a divorce and I need to feel good about myself again,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I went through a surgery, or I lost weight, whatever reason they have um, for that. But there's always the little trauma. There's always something they're trying to heal. So because I don't need to worry about the technical aspects, I know the poses that work for most body types, and I love shooting older women because they are the biggest challenge you can have, because of technology, because back in the day, the only time you will have professional hair, makeup, and feel like pampered, cared, and loved was on the wedding day. So when they come, it already has a shift in the way they feel. Like,
Okay.
this is a different place. There's people there here for me, and that's how I approach every single session, even with models, because
Okay.
the models, they also have the way they
Hang-ups.
see themselves. Like, oh, I'm overweight, right? And you can tell. So the way I see is getting to the point where they feel comfortable. I always tell little stories. I'm always trying to get their mind somewhere, and it's here, it's in the eyes. So
Okay.
the body, to me, it's secondary, right? If they're not feeling in the moment, if they're not comfortable, if they're not confident, there's no nudity that it will save, right? Not even like when you do like an anonymous look, and we do that a lot. But if they're not comfortable, you can see in the muscles, you can see in the pose itself that they're tense, they're not relaxed. So I'm 100% of the time here.
Okay.
So that gets them to understand the power of what we're doing, and understand that's our nature, right?
So you mentioned at the beginning, we got the first image on screen. Let's talk about this a little bit. You mentioned that you live in a world of strobe. You prefer that than. Do you prefer it to natural light, or do you like natural light as well, or how does it balance for you?
Uh, I have two sets. I have this bedroom with a natural window,
Yeah.
which I get to control. So I work with ambient light and strobe to fill the shadows. When it gets dark and when I shoot in there, I have to rely on artificial light outside the window, which
Yeah.
is this case. We shot these images at night. Um, so I work with 100% strobes, or 100% natural light, or a mix of both. It depends on the circumstance. Profession, I do a lot of outdoor stuff. I love shooting at noon, harsh light. I
Yeah.
love when it's overcast. I love blue hour, golden hour. I just, you have to read the light that you're dealing with, and know the best way to approach it, right? But in the studio, I have a certain extent, I have control. In my other set, I have a fake window, so it's all artificial light. And in this one, which is the red room, I have a natural light coming from the window, but it's never direct sunlight. So I always have to work with strobes. Sometimes I use constant light, especially with models, because they tend to be too bright, and clients, they get a little uncomfortable. So strobes, people think that strobes are really a challenge for clients because of the pop, but it's a lot more comfortable than having that, 300 watt.
Flaming light. Yeah.
Uh, and
So
I
you
love, sorry.
so talk to me about technique for a minute. So what's your kind of preferred lens choice, and what's your working apertures? What's your style, as it were?
Uh, I shoot everything from 16 to 180. It depends on the composition.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But what's your
I'm-
go-to?
it will be my 2470. I'm a
Okay.
Canon shooter,
Yeah, yeah.
but I love my 100 macro. I have a 135. I have the 180 macro that I use a lot for close shots and detail shots, which is not something boudoir photographers they use very much. But I
Yeah.
love macro shots for boudoir as well.
And aperture-wise and things, do you like a big depth of field, or do you like a shallow depth of field?
The reason I like strobes is because I like to have the control.
Okay.
I have an 85 1.2, a 50 1.2. I never shot them wide open. I always want some detail, and sometimes it depends on the pose, right? I think if you have a pose like some of Shekinah where she's laying down, sometimes you want to blurry a little bit the body.
Yep.
If it's implied, or if they're uncomfortable, or if they have like everything from a birthmark, from a pregnancy marks. I'm not the best at Photoshop, so I try to get everything in camera. So
Okay.
sometimes I shoot a little bit wider because I want to blurry things
Yep.
with a purpose, but I'm not super crazy. I would be shooting at f8, f11 entire session
Wow. Okay, that's
because
quite
of the
big.
strobe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the session, and specifically, let's talk about this image first and things really. Who have we got here, and kind of what's the idea behind the shot?
That's Shekinah. That's one of my models. I don't use clients or images from clients for marketing or for anything, because I'm getting paid to provide the service, and the therapy, the pictures are for themselves. Sometimes they allow me to use some images, but I'm very careful of doing that.
Yeah.
Because if they're not posting, they're not sharing, I don't want to be the first one to expose them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always have, models that I've been working for a while to do that. So this was in the red room, and the idea was just like a lazy evening where she can just throw some expressions. She's very good at hand poses. I'm obsessed with hands because they can, like, make or break an image. And it was, the concept here is kind of an evening, like a sunset, right?
Yep.
The images in black and white, they look a little more high key, but it was shot with one strobe filling the shadows and another strobe behind the window to create the sunset feel.
Cool. And black and white, what's your kind of your go-to processing? Are you Lightroom, or do you use Bridge Camera Raw? Do you use some other software? What do you use?
I'm very comfortable with Lightroom,
Okay.
not so much with Photoshop. I have a retoucher for clients when it's needed, but I try to keep as natural as possible. I think that's another purpose of boudoir, right? Make them look good in camera. You can see that I'm shooting right there at least 5.6. You can see that it's pretty. I'm not crazy about sharpness, but I love detail at the same
Yeah.
time. So I'm always trying to. I think it gives more of a fashion editorial look, and that's why some of my clients, they come to me, because they don't want just that eye in focus, ears blurry, body blurry in every single picture.
Yeah.
and they want to feel like a model. They want to feel like a Hollywood star per se. So
I was just going to say, it looks like that. It feels like that. It feels more like an editorial uh, shoot for a superstar who
yeah,
kind of, they need to actually do something sexy for a cover. She looks and the image feels like $1 million and things, really, isn't it?
thank you.
And so on. But yeah, so the light that's on her face is coming from the outside. Is that strobe as well?
That's a Fresnel.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Why? You're a Fresnel fan as well, are you?
I love Fresnels.
Oh, and what Fresnel do you use?
I have a 10-inch. I think it's aperture something. It's a simple one. It attached to the strobe,
Strobe,
right?
yeah.
I have the old ones, the tungsten ones. Sometimes I use them, but it gets pretty hot, right? I'm close to the window, and it's like a 2K
Yeah.
tungsten light. So, and it's not as efficient as the strobe, in my opinion.
Because you mentioned that we're looking at obviously the whole shoot, or 8 images from a shoot with this girl
Mm-hmm.
today, and she's a model and things. How do you get the images to translate then into real clients? Because I mean, for some photographers, they really struggle with that, isn't it? They can shoot a model great because the model will pose, model expression, and so on. Obviously, with all your experience that you've got, can you explain a little bit how you translate it to a paying customer coming through the door? How do you react with them so to make them look like her, as it were?
Absolutely. When a client approaches, the first thing they do is they fill up a questionnaire. So I will have a bunch of questions that will help me to understand who they are, what they want, what they like about themselves, what they don't. If they have a partner, what the partner likes the most, the kind of music they like, the colors. So I'm trying to create a profile, right? And from there, they come to the studio, there's the hair and makeup, we have the playlist, we will have a little chat, and I will get to see the outfits they will bring. That gives me an idea of how risque they want to be, or how not so risque they want to be. And they're very transparent, right? I have a client that one time she came, she's like, I hate my legs. If we can only do like medium shots, or like waist up shots, I don't like my legs. And for the first 30 minutes, I saw that tension. I saw that trying to hide, trying to cover, put in the blankets. And after a few pictures, I asked her, can I pose you? Because it's very hard to communicate, because sometimes the Brazilian can sound a little too aggressive, just by the translation, right? Like, these are the only legs you have. That's the body you have. Like, so many people will give anything to have these legs and to be able to walk. And like 2 weeks prior to that, I was shooting a girl in a wheelchair, and I couldn't stop thinking of that, like how we take things for granted. And she was a little reluctant, but she agreed, like, okay, pose me. I posed her, I find the angle, took the shot. First picture. Sometimes I show in the back of the camera because I think it's helpful. And it helps me more than it helps them.
Yeah.
Because I want to see what they like.
Yeah.
Because I'm biased by the lighting, the posing, and sometimes like, oh, that's now how I see myself. That's now how I want to present myself, right? So she looks at that first image and she starts crying, like, this is not me. What did you do? Like, there's no Photoshop in the camera, because we are tied to this perspective, right? I look at my legs, that they don't look great. Or I look in the mirror, they don't look great. That's not how the world see us. So she was never able to see her legs from a different perspective. And for the rest of the session, she was so happy, and so it was liberating for her to see. I always thought my legs were too short or not proportional to my body. And she was posing with the legs and crossing, and it changed her personality right away. The way she came, the way she left. And then I give them like a gift card, go get a snack, a Starbucks, then you come back to see the presentation, the images they want to purchase. And I like to do that right after the session, so they see that there's no Photoshop, there's no filter, there's no hard editing to make them look the way they look. And it's very emotional, it's very powerful. So my approach with clients is to see what they like about themselves, what they don't like, and find the right moment to ask for permission and show how beautiful or how pretty they are, even with those little parts that they're not very comfortable or happy.
What I've just got my questions over on the other side. What kind of techniques do you use to create a soft, natural skin? Do you like to soften skin or not?
I love harsh light. I love the Fresnel. I love the beauty dish. It's not something you will use for boudoir, but those are my to-go modifiers. If I want soft light, I will get closer to the model, but I don't really like soft. I don't really like that overly retouched look, right?
Okay.
She kind of is blessed because she kind of has a perfect skin. One thing I usually do, you can see in the face, because of the Fresnel, you have that hot spot. If you kind of not overexpose, but if you go a little bit hot, the skin looks a little more smooth per
Right,
se.
yeah.
The Hollywood 1930s and kind of, the glam shots, they will have that. They will kind of overexpose a little bit because it softens the skin. I rather use a black mist or like some sort of filter on my lens and have the hard light because it sculpts the jawline. Whatever you're pointing at, you can see like the fine shadows, and it's super pretty. But I rather work my exposure and proximity of my strobe than trying to use like a giant soft box
Softball.
or that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I have
And it, ma-
some,
and it makes the images look so commercial as well, I think.
yeah,
And people are afraid of harsh lighting, and they shouldn't be.
yes,
In Wales, I literally live my life under a cloud of rain. And in LA, I'm sure you live under a blue sky with no clouds most of the time. Um,
yes,
so you're slightly more attuned to the harshness of light, but it can get into your head as well, isn't it? That, oh, harsh light isn't good, so people don't use harsh light.
I,
I remembered going over to Spain to actually teach some workshops over there. And before I went over, one of my friends said to me, "How are you going to teach in the sun, Mark?" I went, "How am I not going to teach in the sun? Because it's the most amazing thing. You guys run away for shade all the time. I just want to get the sunshine, and
it's a
so
blessing.
it's really enlightening to see another photographer using a Fresnel a lot as well with it, because I'm a massive fan. Whether it's for a speed light Fresnel, a studio strobe Fresnel, or it's basically the likes of a redhead, a tungsten light
Yeah,
with a Fresnel and things, really. So really, really good on that. Okay,
yeah.
so we got an amazing looking client here. What's the kind of the tips that you would give a photographer to shoot this kind of image?
Um, First, the model has to be a little, she has to feel not pain. 2 blocks away from the studio, we have a chiropractor. I should get a commission from him because I send so many models and clients to that guy. What happens is they have to pose in a way that it creates the image you want to create, right? Especially when they're laying down, like her upper body will block the lower body. So I have funny names for the poses. Like this one is called the lane shrimp, because you have to kind of rotate your lower body to the opposite way that your upper body is rotating, right? And I'm always talking to them, creating images. Think of you are at Disneyland with Justin Bieber, whatever it helps them to tell a story. I don't need to know what they're thinking about, but they have to be thinking about something, right? So the way I pose is usually I mirror, and I'm that ridiculous guy that will lay on the floor and show what to do. I never touch the clients or the models, so I'm always kind of trying to mimic what I want them to do. But within a certain range. Not every client, my clients are usually older. They can't do this pose, for an example. They can try on a bed. Here, she's on the floor, right? So I give a little room, a little range for them to, I cannot do this, but I can do that. And then I kind of adjust my perspective to capture the look that I'm going for.
I suppose that one of the key things as well, you've done the questionnaire and you've chatted with the client before you go into the shoot. So you're pretty much pre-armed about what you can possibly not do. And then you can kind of just see how it flows with the client as well with it. What kind of, do you use a storytelling at all during your shoot, or is it just, you're making it up as you go? Obviously we have a flow to some extent, but do you have a storytelling in your head? I know that some boudoir photographers do, or do you shoot more like a fashion photographer? This looks cool, I'm going to shoot it, and now I'm going to move you over to here because that looks cool. As how does your brain tick?
I do both because everybody's different. I always have a few scripts in my mind. Like the revenge, right? Like, so the girl it's breaking into this house, maybe it's the ex or something, and she will like play with the food, and she will make a mess in the bathroom. She would take some Polaroid pictures and leave on the bed. So I create these little stories just to help me. We do the kitchen, we do the bathroom, we do the living room, we do the bed. It doesn't play out all the time. Sometimes, especially a client, they will come and the questionnaire, it's a guideline for me, but it's not absolutely true, because they will say what level of how comfortable would you be, or what do you want to do, topless, implied, nudity. I don't do erotic stuff. I usually do some fine art erotic, but it's just a work that I'm doing for probably a photography book next year, but now with clients. So all of my clients, they want to do nude, but sometimes they're here and they just don't feel like doing it. Sometimes they don't want to do it, they end up doing it. So I can't do the fashion look based on a questionnaire, but I always have scripts, right? We love the kitchen shots because they love playing with the fridge. They love to like bake cookies and that kind of stuff, play with like fruits and wine. They love the 2-bedroom spaces that I have, because one, there's like a fireplace, there's a lot of plants, that is a bookcase.
Yeah.
The other one, it's a little more like a French kind of Victorian style with like the headboard, the huge bed. So I have stories, but during the makeup process, when I'm talking to them, I get the feeling if they want to play like a acting boudoir session. And sometimes we do video as well, so that's helpful in those cases. But sometimes the clients, they just want some pictures to celebrate themselves and to see themselves on a different perspective.
So you said that your poses have certain names. What do you call this pose?
Well, this one is still the shrimp, because it's the same upper body to one side, lower body to the other one, but instead of laying down, she's on her knees, right? And I have some nasty names sometimes, especially for the bad poses. I say nasty not in a bad way. Um, I love jazz, so I make jokes from I can't say some words like a female boudoir photographer will say, like, oh, butt or boobs, that kind of stuff. I don't even know if I could say that here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Say anything you want.
Too late now.
No, no.
So I'm always like, oh, let's pop your hip to the air. Let's this, let's that. And I have to be very light and friendly. So we will get to some of those poses. I have the fly me to the moon. Sometimes I want to pop the hip and I say fart me to the moon and they laugh. So I capture that super, you know, candid, and I'm not forcing them. Please smile. I don't like the smiley pictures, but I'm always provoking them to laugh at some point because I want to capture that moment when it's spontaneous. So
And we talked about lighting a little bit. I mean, this could almost feel like it's kind of sunlight coming through a window, isn't it? Kind of thing. You know, it's got
yeah,
a little bit of sharpness to the image as well.
yeah.
But how do you ensure that you bring out the textures and the details and everything else with it? I know you said you're not a Photoshop fan, but is that something that you're doing in the post production if you lose a little bit of it in the lighting at times? How
Uh,
would you recover?
yes, it's pretty much the same thing I do for fashion because I love texture. And in Lightroom, sometimes I add a mask layer and I will
Okay.
add some clarity just on the hair or like a detail in the lingerie or something in the foreground if we have. So of course they don't come out of the camera with all
Yeah.
of that detail, but that's as far as I will go.
So shots like this with the fridge is as part of your set, you said as well, in the kitchen set.
Yes, yeah.
Does this inspire a regular client? Obviously, you know, if you say, "Oh, just go into the fridge and kind of take a swig of wine," or whatever you say and things, really,
Mhm.
to a client, if they haven't seen the image before, they're going to go, "This guy's a bit weird."
Yeah.
But of course, if at least they've seen an example of what you're doing, do you use your kind of shoots that you're setting up for your social media and everything else with it? Do you use these as sample idea shoots at the same time?
What I have is in my makeup room, I have a monitor that it plays a slideshow of some of the work that I curated. So while they're doing makeup, they're looking at some images from, my previous shots, and that gives them a hint of like, oh, I like that. Can we do something like that? So I will always talk them through like these are the spaces we have. These are the kind of shots we can do, and they would just tell me like, oh, yes or no, right?
Yep.
I only had one client that she didn't want to do the wine shot because she had issues before, and at that point you're not like you can have milk and orange juice or so. I don't need to put him in that situation, right?
Okay.
But everyone else they love doing that, and in that case we like let's do the pizza or bake the cookie because they love to get dirty and messy pretending they're baking or cooking. This one I'm using a strobe inside the fridge, and I'm using a second strobe as a backlight for the so-called hip, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a backlit for the lower part of the body and a little like a front light coming from inside the fridge. The light in the fridge is not strong enough to balance with the strobe.
Do you think those kind of images with the fridge and the cookie and all that kind of thing, do you think that's what setting you apart to the general boudoir photographer? Do you think that is something that is setting you aside from them?
I mean, I believe that they have fun. That's how it matters to me
Yeah.
because it's terrifying, right? To come to a stranger and undress and have pictures taken, right? And like you mentioned in the beginning, there's a bunch of female photographers right now, and I think it's a blessing. I think we all see um, body and images in a different way. We approach in a different way. I will never be able to capture what a female boudoir photographer captures because I can't see the way they see, and vice versa, right?
Yep.
So there's this kind of trend right now that they're like, it's 100% female crew, and you come and you're comfortable and you're safe. And but sometimes people want to come because they want that vision, right? They're like, I want to be photographed by a male photographer because we see the female body in a different way. It's not to um, how you say, not exploit, but it's not to objectify, but to me it's a sculpture. It's something that we're trying to light and enhance and create the story. So when I have props, it helps them to forget that thing that is terrifying. It makes them feel that they're in a place where they're being respected, they're safe, um, and it's just fun, right?
Cool. So we've got a more of a sensual image here, whereas with the last image was more of a playfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that, the fridge shot could be more on the verge of that little bit of I'm going to use the word erotic, and I don't mean in that way, but it can feel a little bit more erotic, the fridge shot, compared to this one. So even though she's topless implied, whereas this compares to the fridge image, in fact, the fridge image is actually more erotic than this is. It's this sensual. So I'm not sure how I'm pushing this around the ballpark here, but what I mean is how do you balance the sensuality, the elegance, the eroticism, the fun? How does that balance through with a shoot, whether it's with a model or whether it's with a client? How does it all mix together for you?
Well, I think like for every single image where you have a face, if you crop right in the face, you see that it's very appealing, very sensual, right? Even when the body doesn't translate to that kind of sexuality.
Yep.
And to me, she kind of loves sushi. So when I want those shots, I just tell her like, let's think about sushi, and then she gives me those faces. Um, because it's too shallow to ask a person like the be sexy or do something. Like if you don't provoke, you don't get a reaction, not one that you'll be happy with, right?
Yep.
So I'm always posing them, and the last thing I would do is I would start talking through like, what does this look like, right? So this is the drunk cat because she's falling off the tub. But we're thinking about sushi. Sometimes we will think about dumplings or pizza, or she loves Korean barbecue as well. So I don't know what kind of food I was like teasing her with,
Yeah.
but it translates to that kind of sensual image because at this point she must be starving.
I am as well because I haven't had my dinner yet. So stop talking about food, will you? Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm teasing. Okay. So have you ever had a concept that was a bit too provocative for you to kind of continue on with and things, because especially if you're working with the same model quite a lot, you get to know each other, you get to know each other's boundaries. And I've had models come in with ideas and I'm going, it's not my thing, to be honest, but we'll play around with it at the end. But let's just see how it unravels during the shoot and things. But have you ever had like a place too far to go with?
Never, but I can relate. Intimacy, it's a blessing and a curse because sometimes they're too comfortable. right? I have models coming with just like a trench coat and nothing, and like, let's shoot, and like, no, there's a process to get there, right? But I never went too far, and I've done things that are kind of extremely fine art in my weird concepts. Otherwise, those images will never exist, right? I think going too far is doing something that at some point you decide to show that or publish or
Yeah.
do something with those
Okay.
images, right? Once you're doing for the art, we are one click away to delete something that you think it's inappropriate, but I never done anything like that. I don't go to the toys and that kind of stuff, but I've done vegetables. So, but nobody gets to see those images, right? It's something just to, for me, in a play day, it's a way to be creative. It's a way to refine some of the lighting, some of the poses, because it's a lot easier to have a model.
Yeah.
Like kind of like, so now you're here, this is the pose, and it will take me 15 minutes to really nail my lighting and the pose and the camera and everything. But once I get that, if I have a client that wants to do the same, it will take me less than 5 minutes, because it's a lot more uncomfortable for a client to
Yeah.
be in that pose for 15 minutes.
So we've got two images with that feature the piano. One features a glass of wine looking directly into the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got this kind of overhead image kind of going down. What's your thought process on this? Was this a development shot, or have you done this loads of times before? How does it work?
I did a few times.
Okay.
My wife is a musician, so this is kind of some of the tasks I've done with her. And I loved, but my wife is not a model. She hates pictures, as it should be. So, but she modeled for me as a task. And I had this piano. We're working on a second one, and I always thought, like, how can I incorporate something that it's a little more creative and tell this little story. Now she's a jazz singer, right? So it's kind of noir boudoir per se.
Yeah.
So I love the contrast. I love to create mood with my shadows. I'm not afraid of my shadows, and I just create these little stories. She plays a little bit. She sings. So it's just, to me, a different perspective to shoot a model that I worked so many times before, and you get to the point that you don't want to repeat yourself and do the
Yeah.
same things. So it was our first time doing the piano. I know she sings.
I really like the wine image. I think it's very commercial.
Yeah,
And again, if we had actors and singers and, you know, the kind of that genre of clientele coming through the door, you can see how it's a different look, a different feel, and that fits into it and things really. Really great. You know what? Thanks for sharing 8 images from the same shoot and things. I know I've got some behind the scenes videos that we're going to drop into the recording anyway later on, that they'll be able to actually kind of see what you do and things really. Let's just talk about social media for a minute. So you've got your Facebook and your Instagram and your website as well. Obviously, there's a lot of color images on the Instagram and photo imaging, and obviously it's a good place for photographers who've watched today to actually be able to see kind of what's going on and things in the different kind of styles that you do. Are these all models again, or is there a lot of clients mixed in and things? How does it work for you?
there are a few clients.
Okay.
The ones that they're more covered up, and sometimes I try to attach a testimonial or something nice they say, or I just repost something because they posted. I'm very behind my social media and YouTube, and it's just the pressure of when you're working too much, you don't have time to do both things.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a challenge for me to be more present and more active in social media. Part because I've been working with the models for a long time, and most of my clients, they're coming from advertisement and Google ads. So
Yeah.
I don't rely on social media to bring clients because it's unpredictable. So I need to have somebody to manage my social media, that's for sure.
And because of obviously the nature of boudoir photography and the amount of flesh that's shown, have you had any problem with Instagram or anything? Have they kind of rejected any images yet and things really, or you've been lucky
Uh,
so far?
every week. I'm blessed because I can post a picture with a hand and I get flagged, right? Oh, that hand is too sensual, or just the lips. So I'm still trying to navigate the guidelines, but from what I've seen on other accounts, people go really, really far. I don't know how they get away with that,
Yeah.
and I'm unable to, you know, showcase what I would like to. So the website, it's kind of a good place to start, but it's still not updated. I just shoot too much, right? This week is my last week shooting. My play day is already planning for Valentine's Day next year.
Yeah.
So it's an intense kind of work. I'm doing a lot of outdoor nudes for a calendar. Um, I'm halfway there. I would love to share some images with you later on. But
I'm sure we can do that on another session without any trouble.
okay,
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eddie, for kind of sharing it. And I can see how passionate you are about your boudoir photography and things, really. And it's great to actually see, different photographers from around the world doing the same thing but differently, isn't it?
yes,
That's one of the great things we do on the academy. We try not and have any boundaries except good taste. And again, it's great to be able to explore and show images, at least to our members. But we've had no nudity in today, so we don't have any problem and things really. But it's great. I've got a couple of questions to finish off with, if that's okay.
of
And
course.
these are kind of the questions I put out to my regular people who I kind of put the questions out with. How do you find the creative inspiration? Do you ever feel blocked?
Never.
Never. Brilliant.
I
Okay.
love what I do.
If
It doesn't
there's,
mean that sometimes you wake up and you're not feeling great, but
yeah.
you start shooting and you're just right there.
How do you balance the artistic vision that you have with the client's expectations?
Well, my clients, they come to me because they like what they seen. So it's a work of trust, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting hired to provide the experience, and I'm assuming they did the research, they know the pictures, they know the style, they know what I do, and that's what they're here for. But we always talk, and sometimes you have to adjust, right? Going back to hard light, I had a 69-year-old client shooting with the Fresnel. She looked amazing. So
I'm close to that age. Don't knock that,
no, I
okay?
know, I know, I know. You look great. You look younger
It's
than
not
me,
about
man.
age using a Fresnel. Behave yourself.
I
You're going to give
know,
me nightmares tonight.
but but
Um,
you know the industry,
yeah, I know
right?
what you mean.
So it's all about how you approach things, right?
Yeah.
So and she loved it, right? Some people want to celebrate the wrinkles. Some people they're not ready for that, right? So you find ways to provide the best experience and images that they will, cherish.
What advice would you give to a photographer, male or female, who's considering their first boudoir shoot? Any advice?
Um, if you're looking for advice, don't do it.
Oh,
It
okay.
has to be there. If you don't know how it's gonna be, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're just doing for the uh, sexy pictures or whatever it's your goal, don't do it. go glam, go fine art, go work with models and experiment and develop your voice or your style. Because a client, it's a really delicate thing, right?
Yeah.
And you have partners taking cell phone pictures and that kind of stuff. That's not empowering. That's not celebrating. That causes more harm than it helps.
Okay.
So if you're not sure about what to do, and if you're my passion comes from seeing lives being transformed, right? The
Okay.
way they come, the way they leave. So if you're not ready to provide that uh, emotionally, not even the photography, right? Because I tell everybody, and cursing again, like master your, learn your shit,
Yeah.
learn your lighting, learn your composition, because when the client is there, they're everything you have to worry about. Not camera settings, not lens, not light. You don't have time for that.
I would have
So
said start by booking a model, because they'll help you more
yeah,
than anything, rather
yeah.
than never do it kind of thing with it.
Yeah,
But
but if like,
no, I've got to.
should I do this? The answer is always no. If you have to do something, you will find a way to do. But
Yeah,
if
but
you're not,
if I said no to walking across the dance floor to ask my wife to dance, she'd never dance. So
right?
you've got to give it a go. And I wouldn't say no. I mean, if I'm sorry to
Of course.
completely go against you on this one, but I would just say if the idea is there, I agree with you about if you're doing it for just the titillation and everything else with it, it's probably not. But don't start with a client. I agree with you on that. But don't I'm trying to teach my grandsons flavors. Teach, if they don't try it, they'll never know they don't like it.
Oh, yes.
And that's the kind of thing, and just go from that with it and things really. But let's finish off with the last question. How would you describe your signature style in boudoir photography? Is there something that you could kind of wrap it up in?
Uh, I think so. I'm here for the woman. So regardless of
But the style, I
style,
mean, it's not so much for the
yeah.
experience, because we that's what boudoir photography is really about for clientele. I get that, but in the style. So I'm asking you, how would you wrap up if you're trying to explain your signature style in boudoir photography to someone? How would you explain it?
Um, it's hard light, it's glam. Uh, from the background with fashion, Peter Lindbergh is my, my
Yeah,
hero. Um, and that's how I've been trying to do to celebrate women. I love black and white as much as I love color. Um, I don't like soft light to start with. I think when you have hard light, it's easier to make it soft if you want. You cannot do the other way around unless you have a huge space.
yeah.
But my style is, I would say, I don't like to say dark and moody because everybody's saying that, right? But I do love to embrace the shadows, the contrast, and to tell story. So I think I'm a fashion commercial editorial boudoir. That's kind of
There you
what
go.
I
You
think.
just summed up your styling.
Yeah,
Eddie, thank you so much for today, mate. Honestly, it's been great, and thanks for sharing eight of your images as well as your life story as well. It's brilliant, and that's what talk photography is all about, of course. And I'm sure I'll be dragging you back again to talk about some more of your images. Thank you so much.
it will be an honor. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for your audience. I hope somebody gets to enjoy this, and I would love to be back sometime soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eddie.
Thank you.